Welcome to the John Cady podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired, former minister, and tonight's episode is going to be one of reflection. 5 years ago, this country, along with the rest of the world, was racked with the effects of COVID-19, also known as the Wuhan Virus and SARS-2. I'm not going to be talking about all the medical facts and figures and not get into much about the politics involved, but this is going to be a moment of sharing my own experiences with dealing with the pandemic, especially when it took place during the last few months that my girlfriend and I lived in Maryland. When we first began hearing about the COVID-19 pandemic, now I was in a situation where, in an attempt to save money, I would be taking the bus back and forth to the different sites where I worked for a security company. And I followed the news, and there was already a lot of commotion being raised about, so-and-so coming down with COVID. But then the first big hit that I noticed in the Baltimore area was they shut off a lot of the bus service. The MTA, Maryland Transportation Authority, especially in the Baltimore area, they reduced access to the buses for essential personnel only, or essential workers. Now, picture this, mind you. Governor Hogan was already in the process in the spring of 2020 putting Maryland under lockdown. You couldn't go out to eat anywhere. Churches were shut down. A lot of the mom and pop shops had to restrict the number of people going in and out after the entire country was shut down for 2 weeks to try to, quote, stop the spread. Then came the mask mandates. And I opposed the mask mandates from day one. Just from what I understand biologically about viruses, a virus going through the fabric of a mask would be like a mosquito going through your average chain link fence. It might stop. That fence would stop a volleyball from bouncing through, but it's not going to stop a mosquito from flying through. Those masks could stop water droplets, but they're not going to stop a virus. A virus is real tiny, just go right through. But here we are. I couldn't go into any place of business, into any store, unless I had that stinking mask on. That mask, my girlfriend and I both agreed on this, was nothing more than a muzzle of forced compliance. And then came, the restaurants for several months, they couldn't invite people in to eat. Inside dining was prohibited. But then going to work, since I no longer had access to the bus because they reduced ridership by 2/3, and the whole front of the bus was blocked off to maintain social distancing requirements between the passengers and the drivers. I had to drive back and forth to work with papers. That's right. I had to have papers on me proving that I was an essential worker. Otherwise, if I got pulled over, I would have been told to go home and stay there, which I thought was utter nonsense. I got harped on about, you're supposed to wear your mask at work. I work outside, thank you very much. Why do I need to wear a mask when I'm walking around outside a good, often 30, 40 yards away from anybody? So the likelihood of me catching anything is probably slim to none, but you will wear the mask. If you value your job, you will wear the mask. Had people coming up and saying, oh, Thank you for wearing that mask. It protects me. Bull. No, the only reason I still wore that mask was because in the midst of all this, then came an executive order signed by none other than Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland, stating that if you were caught violating COVID protocols, you could face up to a $5,000 fine or a year in jail. No, I wasn't trying to protect anybody. I was trying to stay out of jail. Then comes this wonderful thing called contact tracing. They had this big campaign pushed, answer the phone if the Maryland Department of Health calls. No, I never once answered that phone call. Why risk losing what little privacy I had left to be tracked by the health department? And then, because what if they found out that I was walking near somebody or somebody at my place of work had COVID? Then they tell me, oh, you need to go home. Why? I'm not sick. I'm feeling great. Why do I need to go home? And then going shopping. Imagine this. You go to your preferred large grocery store or big box store. They had places marked where you had to stand to maintain the social distancing requirements. Then they had security posted at the entrance of the stores to make sure everybody was wearing their masks and staying 6 feet away from each other. They had arrows painted on the floors in places so that people would be directed to walk in those areas and still maintain the distancing. It was all nonsense. It restricted movement. It restricted freedom. It destroyed a lot of businesses. A lot of small businesses did not survive. By the time restaurants were finally being allowed to have inside dining and the number of people allowed in the stores and everything was allowed to increase, the damage was done. A lot of places didn't recover from COVID. My employer went out of business. However, I will address this. It was not due to the pandemic. There were some other issues going on which I am not at liberty to discuss, but they definitely had nothing to do with the pandemic. Now, come October of 2020, we got out of Maryland. We beat feet as soon as we could and arrived in Oklahoma. The first thing we noticed was like, wow, people are walking around with no masks on. It's almost like everything's almost back to normal, except for a couple holdover fast food places that stayed in pandemic mode far longer than necessary. In short, as I wrap this up, the restrictions and limitations that were placed on us in different parts of the country do all in the name of controlling the COVID-19 pandemic, as we now know, have proven to be ineffective. The masks were proven to be useless. Social distancing was a joke. There was no scientific proof that it worked. Even the vaccines that have been pushed on everybody, at the best, are maybe 60% effective. A lot needs to be learned and digested, and I pray to God that we never go through this again. This is John Cady. Hit the like or subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one.